All right, this is your lesson for project 7, which is collage. So the objective for this project is I want students to create a color collage using torn paper from magazines and glue. You can use Elmer's glue or you can use a glue stick. I prefer a glue stick when I do this project just because it's quicker to dry, but you can do it either way. The pieces of the collage can only be torn pieces from a magazine smaller than 1 inch by 1 inch. And so as a frame of reference, I always tell students no bigger than your thumbnail. Okay, that's about 1 inch by 1 inch. Okay, it has to cover the entire paper, and your subject has to be something impressionistic, which means outdoors. Okay, so if you think about that, that kind of goes a lot of ways. Anything that I take and then put outside is now outdoors. So think about that. I can take a pair of shoes and set them outside. Now they're outside. Okay. I can take this baseball and bat and throw it in the grass. Now it's outside. So also consider places like baseball diamonds, football fields, any of that is outside. So you can get a little creative with this. This does not have to be just a landscape, okay? So here are a few examples of what this project is going to look like. You are going to be tearing tiny little pieces of paper to create little bits of color to fill in an area, okay? Very easy to do, but it doesn't look super crisp. And one of the things that I like about this project, or that gives it its appeal, is that you're using torn papers from magazines, and those torn edges will then be white. So if you kind of look at some of these examples, it'll show you that, you know, the color might be red, but then on the outside where you tore it, you can see this white space, which gives it its look. Okay, so that's an important piece. So that's why it's not recommended to tear pages, you know, use pages from like, oh, I just went out and I bought a pack of colored paper and I tore up the colored paper. No. This magazine is kind of the point. All right, so notes for this project. Impressionism is something that I always go over with this project because it's that's where I got the idea from. So Impressionism is it's an art movement. It is a group of artists who started doing their painting style to get away from the traditional. And the word impressionism means the impression stamped on the senses by a visual experience. These artists focused on the ever-changing light source in nature, working quickly to record what they saw in front of them at the time. This was different because they were not in a studio doing the painting, and they used different types of paints and paint colors at this time. Okay, so they used what's called a high key color palette. And a high key color palette just means brighter colors, or colors that are lighter, more pastel, more true to what you think of in the springtime. During the time when they started doing these paintings, paintings were very traditional in that they were portraits and they were very dark and drab. And so what these artists were trying to do is they were trying to record more realistic things. You know, colors in your world are a lot brighter. And so what I've included here is an example of high key color palette, which are the light end of that value scale, and the low key is the dark end of that value scale. Okay, and it holds true with specific colors too. So I didn't want to just put that in there in terms of a value scale. I wanted to make sure that you see that in terms of color as well. It's the lighter end of the colors, more on the left side of this picture, okay? They got their idea from a painting called Impression Sunrise, which was done by Claude Monet. And this painting, I know you're probably thinking this is really drab, but this was a painting of what it looked like across the water at sunrise. So you know how like when the sun is just starting to come up and things are starting to get brighter and brighter and brighter, that's kind of what this person was trying to portray. And the term impressionism came from this specific painting, okay? Impressionists were originally criticized heavily and professionally shunned. They were considered outrageous and untalented. But later, their style became more popular. And so here's some examples of Impressionist work. This one was done by an artist called Renoir. But you can see that like it's not crisp. It's got this like choppy personality where they use choppy brushstrokes and you know, a lot of color to fill things in. So here's some other examples. A lot more of the choppy brushstrokes and not as, you know, perfect, crisp, and realistic. Here's one by Manet, and The Dancers by Degas. And this one's probably the one that you know most of you know. It's Van Gogh's Starry, Starry Night. And this is another one with these choppy brushstrokes. And this is basically, think of Impressionism as I'm an artist and this is how I see things. And, you know, it doesn't have to be realistic. It can be a little more creative. And that's kind of where these artists were going. Okay, here's the last one. This is by Mary Cassatt. All right, so those are some examples of Impressionism. For this project, you're going to need magazines, which I've included in your supply pack, but you might need to start looking for some more that you can chop up just because I only had so many that I could give out. Glue stick or Elmer's glue. It's up to you what you want to use. Both will work. Manila paper, 12 by 18 with an orange dot. All your paper in your packs are the same size. You're using the 12 by 18 manila, so it's that like tannish colored paper. You're also going to need a pencil and a ruler. All right. Step-by-step instructions for this. You are going to choose an outdoor subject for your collage. Then you're going to take the 12 by 18 manila paper with the orange dot on it. You're going to draw a 1-inch border. If you need a video for that, that is here. All you have to do is click on it to show you, to refresh you on remembering how to do that. Number 3, draw the bones of what you're going to create on your paper inside the border. Make sure nothing is smaller than a quarter. Anything smaller than a quarter is just going to frustrate you and make you crazy. So I'm telling you, keep everything larger than a quarter, nice, big, chunky design so that you can fill this in with paper, okay? Because we're not just filling it in with like marker or pencil. It's filling it in with something that you have to tear into tiny little pieces, okay? Number 4, begin flipping through magazines to find the colors you plan to use to fill in your collage. Minimal words on the color are okay. So you don't want to find anything with big giant words that are going to take away from the color of that background. But if it's teeny tiny little print in like white or black, that's fine, okay? And the reason you're flipping through magazines to find your color first, you don't want to run out of the color. You want to make sure that you have enough to fill the area that you are working on. If you run out, you're going to have a very hard time trying to find more. Do not be overly picky on the exact shade. Okay, so I'm filling this sky with blue, okay? I wanted to make sure that it's a light blue. Okay, fine. Every shade of light blue that you find, tear it out of the magazine because you might find a lot of a darker light blue or a lighter light blue. But, you know, if you go in with the mindset of, I want a light aqua. Okay, that's too much. I want a light blue. Just go with light blue, all right? And any shade of light blue will work. You can mix those colors too within that background, and you'll see that in the process video. I go through, you know, how these colors are similar. I'm going to use them here, but I'm going to mix them up so it looks like it was an intentional mix, okay? All right. So, you're going to group like colors in separate piles. So I'm going to go, okay, I have all these light blues. Well, these are darker and these are lighter. So the dark one's over here and the light one's over there. Stop when you think you have enough to fill the area that you have. Begin by tearing 1-inch by 1-inch pieces of magazine and placing it on the paper where it goes. So you're just trying to give it a fit, figure out where it goes, okay? Then remember that larger pieces will cause you to get points deducted from your project. So they have to stay smaller than that thumbnail, okay? Do not tear all the pieces at once. Do not make little bits and then try to put them down. Tear as you go. Tear it off, glue it down. Tear it off, glue it down, okay? Don't do it any other way because you will just make yourself crazy and it'll make a mess. Number 6, note, if you are using regular Elmer's glue, putting it down in heavy amounts will cause your paper to ripple, okay? And it'll be a mess. Apply in thin layers of Elmer's glue to the manila paper and spread it out with your finger. If the glue is shiny, you're good. If it looks white still, you're going to need to spread it further. Okay. If it's white, it's too much. All right. Number 7, fill the entire paper with your colored bits of magazine so that the only manila paper showing is your border. Let it dry, do a critique sheet. I am grading you on 10 points for your 1-inch border, 15 for your outdoor subject matter, 1 inch by 1 inch torn pieces are 15 points. Your color scheme that you used is 20 points. Cover all the manila, that's 10 points. Creativity, 10 points. Craftsmanship, 10 points. And your critique sheet, as always, is 10 points. For submitting your work, put your name on the collage in the 1-inch border space. Photograph it. Number 2, complete a critique sheet in one of those 3 ways that you've been doing all semester, either jotting it down on a piece of paper and photographing it, pulling up a Google document and answering the questions, or complete the document using Cami. Number 3 says upload your critique to, and your collage to project number 7 in Google Classroom when you are all done.